Previously, in Hedge Knights, visitors were repelled from the western gate. Megahoof and Jadea gave birth to their first child, Bash. The first batch of experimental beer finished fermenting, and it was delicious. The southern farm patch was tilled in preparation for next season. The grounds of the foothill keep were cleaned of pollution so that walls could expand, allowing for a few private bedrooms, and acidic smog rolled in. Episode 6. Mycology. The members of the Bison Glade worried about the upcoming winter and how little food they would have to share amongst them. They didn't expect Bash to be born or Relko and Madzi to join. A potent solution to this situation would have to be found soon. Jadea and Megahoof discussed this with Relko, and Relko said that his community relied on hunting in the winters. But this is something that Megahoof and Jadea wanted to avoid. The plan they came up with was that they would use both the pollution-absorbing trees and the steam geysers to grow nutrifungus into the winter. They had relied upon nutrifungus back home on the coasts and thought it might come in handy again. The plan was to create thick, insulating walls around the tree and then to grow the nutrifungus in the clean soil heated by hearths constructed to keep the area warm. Back in their coastal home, they used steam geysers for heating as well, but the method required steel vents, and nobody understood how to forge steel yet. Megahoof realized this would become increasingly important, and decided to make it his intellectual focus. They weren't sure if one hearth would be enough to keep their farms warm, so they built and planned to use multiples, if necessary. Madzi asked if there was anything that she could do to help them. As much as the others tried to mask their concern, she could tell the situation was urgent. The squires told her that if she was able to haul stone for the project, it would be most helpful, and she happily agreed. She felt cooped up while behind the keep walls, so even though the outside was dangerous and smoggy, she was happy to have a reason to wander. The amount of stone required for this project was going to far exceed what one person could carve. A second stone cutter will be built to accommodate the demand. The plans to clean the surrounding area of the keep were to be put on hold. Feeding the members of this community was certainly more important. Relko asked Sapo if he might be the one to name the newest bison, and Sapo obliged. Relko came from a warring community. His community had perished because they had fought the visitors and lost, and he wanted to name the bison Marauder. He envisioned a future where he could ride on Marauder's back into battle, fighting the visitors on their own turf. To make matters significantly worse, the smoggy weather turned to acid rain. As much as everyone would have preferred to stay indoors where the air was relatively clean and where they'd stay dry, no time could be wasted for comfort. Lazarus noticed that Aurelco's clothing was tattered, likely due to the rust production of cut slate. Perhaps a new shirt with fresh linen would be a good way to say thank you for his efforts. Using the pollution-absorbing tree was only one of multiple ambitious plans. The other plan was to use the steam geyser that was just outside their walls to heat a section of the northern rice paddock and to grow nutrifungus there as well. Tangier headed south to the Iron and Coal Mountain to ensure the hearth stayed lit during the long winter months. She was devastated upon arrival. The cave she had hewn was free of pollution just weeks ago, but not any longer. The cave floor was covered in toxic rot, and this could only mean the pollution was spreading. Their situation was already dire. News like this would be heartbreaking. Tangier finishes up hewing the last of the coal from the mountain. Tangier returned to the keep as the bearer of grim news, but upon hearing the news, it seemed that Megahoof was not all that surprised. Megahoof explained that if the pollution wasn't spreading, the trees would have already cleaned a large swath of the soil around them, but this was obviously not the case. He postulated that there must have been a large grove of trees where their keep now stands that died off just before their arrival, and that likely the acidic smog was responsible for the spreading of the pollution, striking an unfortunate equilibrium with the twisted trees. As much as Megahoof wished he had the time to unlock the mystery behind the smog and trees, he knew that there were more pressing issues at hand, and told Tangier to keep this news to herself and continue her efforts of building the fungal farms. He promised her that as soon as their current crisis was resolved, he'd investigate the situation himself. Sapo and Aurelco worked furiously to cut stone for the nutrifungus farms. Tangier started constructing the walls, with Judea at her side. The northern paddock nutrifungus would be planned, but not sown until the rice started to die from the frost. They wanted to give the rice a chance to grow as much as it could before switching the farm fields over. Judea and Tangier watched in horror as the tiny fertile area around the northeast tree was half enveloped by pollution. Tangier told Judea that Megahoof was already aware of the situation, but this did little to soothe Judea's nerves. Brick by brick, the new farm is starting to take form. Tangier is a lot happier working near her pack than in far-flung hills mining coal or iron. Tangier gasped for fresh air. As much as she wanted to keep her grandmother's armor equipped, she realized a linen mask was far more practical. Only a small fraction of the northeast farm had been constructed, and the Adlets would have to redouble their efforts to keep the community fed. Fortunately, the acidic smog subsided, but it gave way to a hard driving snow. Constructing the farm in thick snow is sure to be exhausting. Arauco yelled for the others for aid. A warg was trying to hunt him. The Adlets did not believe in hunting for sport or game, but they would absolutely defend themselves. The warg had died, and a stray arrow had pierced Arauco. Sappo would put this warg to good use, wasting not an ounce. Sappo was secretly happy the warg had died. He took joy in frolicking around the forest and its creatures, and the thought of the warg hunting them saddened him, even if it was the natural order of things. The others may have mourned the passing of such a strong and fierce creature, but for Sappo, it was an opportunity to stretch their rations and make better food. With the smog subsided, they could start to clean up the area around their fungal farm. The abundant linen will allow the Bisonglade Adlets to avoid wearing tattered and torn clothing. Megahoof tells his friends that if any pieces of clothing wears out, they should ask Lazarus for a replacement. Retaining walls are built around the geyser, and it will help to keep the geothermal heat in, harnessing it as an efficient way of growing fungus. A decision was made that through this thick snow, it was very unlikely that more of the rice would manage to grow. So Lazarus and Sapo would harvest what little they could and change it over into a nutrifungus farm. Aurelco's arrow wound from the warg hunting accident got infected. Likely the smog and pollution are to blame, but Sapo orders ample bed rest to ensure expedient recovery. Although not a medicine woman, Tangier offered some encouraging words to him and to thank him for all of his diligent work. A modest harvest was pulled from the northern rice paddock. And they will be converting this over to a nutrifungus farm soon. The bison were out of hay, and despite the Atlas' desire to feed the wild animals, they would need to prioritize their own. War horns sounded once again. Visitors from the north. The visitor war party did not immediately attack the keep, so the squires hatched a plan of their own. The plan was to ambush a few of the war party under the cover of darkness and then to lure them to the fortified western gate. Despite Aurelco's illnesses, they knew that they would need every able-bodied fighter for an initial volley of arrows. They told Madzi to stay inside. The bowmen hoped to pick off stragglers of the war party and to bait them into an ambush. Aurelco takes another arrow and falls back. The Adlets would rely upon their western gate trap once again, hoping that news of the trap did not spread amongst the visitors. Megahoof could hear a fight break out amongst the visitors and thought that this might be a good time to take advantage. Despite the skirmishes, the visitors were not enticed into an assault. The squires decide to recoup and ready themselves for what will likely be a daybreak raid. As predicted, they assault at daybreak. Whatever ravenous hatred the visitors bear, they seem to think logically and not instinctively, which is a frightening revelation for the squires. Megahoof collapsed due to pain and blood loss. Sapo springs into action and patches up Megahoof. Judea and Aurelco work on cutting down the fleeing visitors. Tangier knows that there is not a moment to waste, and despite the battle, immediately springs back to the construction project. Hunger was just as much of an enemy to this community as visitors were. Rocco volunteers to haul the bodies away, and Lazarus patiently waits for Sapo to tend his wounds, knowing that Megahoof needs him more urgently. Megahoof is carefully carried to his bedchamber to rest from the onslaught. Sapo makes sure to inspect his wounds for any signs of infection or disease. Lazarus's bruises are also tended. His ancestral armor had served him well. The northeast farm is about half constructed, but time is of the essence, and Tangier races to get it finished. Just like Aurelco's arrow wound, so too did Megahoof's wound fester. Sapo wonders if the visitors purposely poisoned their blades in order to encourage infection. He'll broach this topic with Megahoof once he's better. The Adlets hurriedly bring hay to their bison to keep their bison fed. Judea worries for her husband and the sacrifices he made to keep them all safe. In appreciation for the sacrifices Megahoof made in the defense of their family, Judea tries to build as much of the fungal farm so that the project is finished once Megahoof returns to his feet. Winter has begun, and crops are starting to die off. Sapo rushes to harvest what little rice he can before winter's frost kills what they have left growing in the fields. All of the salvageable rice is harvested and hauled away. The Adlets will have to turn their hope towards heated and darkened fungal farms. A strange stillness hangs in the air. Judea thinks of home. The poisoned sands and tainted oceans stank of rotten filth. But there was a strange serenity to be found on the coasts. She found a similarity between the lapping of the ocean waves and the crunching noises trotting through the snowy forest, and hopes the friends and family she left behind are having an easier life than she has now. Megahoof's infection is improving, and he'll likely be on his feet in just a day or two. The initial walls around the northeast farm are done, and now they'll have to sow the nutrifungus. Careful not to destroy the tree in the process. Megahoof returns to his feet for a little beer and ambrosia before returning to bed to heal, knowing that the rest of the squires will manage the projects diligently. Judea works in the dark, constructing the hearth that will heat the Nutrifungus farms. Upon the hearth's completion, she rushes to grab some coal to see if their calculations will allow the area to warm up enough to sow the soils, but dark enough to seed their mushrooms. Lazarus confirms that the right conditions for fungal growth has been met, but the task of removing the topsoil's pollution still lies ahead. The last of the geyser's walls are finished, and the northern rice paddock is ready to be repurposed for Nutrifungus as well. The northern rice paddock has been converted by Judea and Tangier to a fungal farm and awaits a farmer to sow the newly cleared fields. Orelco and Sapo work to clean the northeast Nutrifungus farm. Sapo and Lazarus stumble around in the dark, hoping their eyes will adjust to the gloom of the field. This reminds them of home, of the expansive fungal caves that were dutifully tended by mycologists and served as the lifeblood to their community. Tainted topsoils are bagged up and fungal spores are sown into the soils. The twisted central tree occasionally breaks the silence with unnerving creaking. The bison no longer have any food to eat, and the others worry that they won't be able to source enough for them to graze upon. A strange orange sprout pops up just south of the bison ranch, and Sapo takes a break from farming to investigate the seed pod. Orelco warns the others that he heard growling from the northeast. The bowmen heed the shouted warning and man the western arrow loops, ready for whatever may come. A pack of rabid dogs round the northern wall, clearly feral and visibly diseased. The squires have seen the visitors use such animals like this to track and hunt, but this pack must have escaped, driven mad either by starvation or plague. The adlets let loose a continuous volley of arrows, knowing it is ultimately an act of mercy to put such suffering beasts to rest. The manhunters have been slain, and the keep's surroundings have been made safe once again. With the haystacks that were once offered up for wildlife grazing depleted, it stands to reason the local wildlife will become increasingly more aggressive. Winter is turning the forest and its creatures against the squires. Sappho and Lazarus are disappointed that there isn't time to till the soil, but they both suggest that more of the fertile farmland be converted over to nutrifungus, as rice is quickly running out. Tangier thinks that they have enough fuels from the coal mountains to be able to expand the nutrifungus farms south. One of the added benefits from converting the farms from rice to fungus is that the adlets will be sheltered from storms and smog. Despite that, the thought of returning to a fungus-based diet churns the stomachs of the 5 squires, especially without the fish and crab they used to catch off the coasts. The geyser farm is fully sown, and there is nothing left to do but wait and pray nothing happens to the young spores before harvest. The once expansive farms are divvied up into smaller tracts that will be easier to heat and manage during the long, cold winter months ahead. The ambrosia will not likely grow in the winter, so it will be roofed up instead, and the area repurposed for nutrifungus. They will also need an additional hearth to keep this new crop field warm. Lean times are ahead for the young adlets. The rice has run out, and the bison grow hungry. They may need to resort to hunting or to find food elsewhere in the surrounding hills. More of the pollution is manually removed around the tree so that they can spread the nutrifungus, and then the pollution hauled off and away for the other trees to absorb. The new hearth is fueled and the warmth radiates outwards, drafting into the newly enclosed field. Soon they will be able to sow even more spores into the untilled soil. Arauco shares the sad news with Tangier that likely they will require even more coal this winter to make sure that the fungal farms stay heated. Sappho and Lazarus carefully mark the ambrosia spores as to not disturb their bushes, in hopes they'll continue to grow next season. The entire community came together in a massive collaborative project with much success. Many hands truly make quick work of difficult tasks, and to help to forge bonds amongst survivors who were once strangers. Tangier and Lazarus are no exception. The two young adlets have fallen in love. Megahoof smiles at the news, hoping it will lift Tangier's spirits during the toils of mining. Judea happily constructs a larger bed for the new couple, but warns them of the sleepless nights ahead if they plan to try for a little one of their own. Most of the protected fields have been utilized for nutrifungus, but the community is already struggling with scarcity. The squires will have to discuss what extreme measures they're willing to take as they hurtle deeper into the winter. Thank you, dear viewer, for watching episode 6 of Hedge Knights. If you would like to support me as a content creator, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, sharing the series with your friends, or even becoming a member of my Discord community or patron of my Patreon page. Links can be found in the description of the video. Thank you so very much for watching. Farewell.